There are a lot of lenders out there that make money when people don't make payments, because then they can balloon the amount that they owe, and those become profit centers for those lenders. We are structured very much against that model of operating. We want to be upfront with our patients, and so that they know exactly what they're getting into, and we want them to have a good experience ultimately.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao. Before we begin, I wanted to, number one, thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are Dental Intelligence and the Doc Site, so thank you for being a part of this podcast. I also wanted to mention everybody about the event that I'm hosting in September of 2023 in Delray Beach, Florida at the Opal Grand Resort. It's called Supercharge Your Dental Practice. Please check out superchargeyourdentalpractice.com to learn more about the meeting. There's early bird pricing available. To save an extra $100, use the term Raving. Raving will get you an extra $100 off registration. So I'm really excited today to be speaking to a member of a company called Wisetack. And Wisetack is a newer third-party financing company, but I wanted to bring it to the attention of the listeners of this podcast. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Bennett Winton. Benton, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So Bennett is a strategic partnership manager, and he's been leading Wisetack's healthcare growth strategy for the last year and a half, including dentistry, veterinary, and other medical specialties. Previously a management consultant at Keystone, he focused on tech strategy, operations, and digital transformation. He studied biomechanical and mechanical engineering at Dartmouth College, and he's passionate about technology, strategy, entrepreneurship, rock climbing, tennis, reading, and learning new skills. So nice brief. Thank you for keeping it brief. But let's get started here, Bennett. Thanks for joining me, number one. Let's start right off the bat is why patients love using Wisetack.
Wisetack is incredibly simple, easy, and fast to use, both for patients and the practice. And it's rare to see a software product where love is one of the most commonly used words in feedback surveys. And we get this through our Net Promoter Score surveys. So we ask every user to rate us on a scale of 1 to 10 after they've used our service. And 85% of users give us a 9 or a 10 out of 10, with comments highlighting how easy it was to use, how it relieved their stress of seeking the care that they needed and getting rates that they want to take.
Obviously, as you know, I'm an expert in third-party financing. There's lots of companies out there, okay? Obviously, patients love using you. Why does a dentist want to use Wisetack? What advantages do they have compared to other companies in the market? Because there are so many other options in the industry. So let's bury that, or let's get that right to the top of what we're talking about here.
Totally. So one thing that really differentiates Wisetack is our focus on the technology of lending. Our founders come from a variety of online payments and lending backgrounds. Our CEO is head of product at PayPal, had a product at Lending Club. So very aware of sort of the history and innovation that's gone on in payments and lending. And so we've built a platform that makes it really easy to extend lending to your patients through the software that you're already using. So I'd like to highlight the example of our integration with Dental Intelligence. We are natively integrated into their treatment plan functionality, so that when a patient sees the treatments that they're going to be receiving and the cost of that treatment, that they have a financing option sitting right there on the digital treatment plan. Makes it really easy for them to find a good way to pay for it. And for the practice, it makes it easy that it's just a simple application that the patient can fill out on their own device, whether they're at home or in the chair. It's a soft credit pull, and patients love the options that they see. And it takes a lot of the burden off the practices for having to present and talk the patients through the options.
For those that are intrigued by what you just said, let's talk about some of the specifics to the extent that we're able to talk about them on the podcast. Obviously, you work with a range of FICO scores. Can you briefly discuss that so somebody knows what range you're normally going to approve someone at?
Definitely. So we can go as low as 540 FICO, and we also have options that people with perfect credit would love to use as well. So our products cover a wide swath of the credit spectrum, and we do risk-based pricing for patients. So they're going to see interest rates that are appropriate for their credit history. And for the offices, it's really simple. They just simply send a text message to the patient. The patient fills out a quick form. They see their options and they can accept them in real time. And I think that speed and ease of use can boost case acceptance by getting people through the stress and fear of how am I going to pay for this treatment in just a few minutes, even while they're in the chair, and maybe even get same day treatment.
That's awesome. What payment options or what options will the patient see when they're presented with an opportunity to use the service?
Yeah, so every patient gets multiple options from 3 months to 24 months, and they get to choose the time period over which they're paying back the loan. And that can provide a lot of flexibility to the patient. They get the power to choose. And each, the interest rate that they pay is, depends on the time length that they want to choose. And so they get the option for whatever fits their budget.
You offer limited or very few no interest options. Most of them are, there's going to be some finance charge applied to the patient. Is that correct?
Yeah, folks with good credit are going to see 0% options, and the other options will have a simple interest rate attached to them. But overall, it's much less than what it would cost someone if they put it on a credit card. And what we've found is that credit cards are a great way to pay, but they're not a great way to borrow. And the fees that you incur over a multi-year time frame of having an expensive charge on your credit card really add up. And so it's much less expensive for someone to go with a buy now, pay later option where they know exactly how much interest they're going to pay up front. And we're very transparent with that. Before they select their loan, they see, this is how many dollars in interest you'll pay over the next 2 years, for example. And we have no additional fees or charges on top of that, which is a really great peace of mind for patients who are used to potentially misleading loan options that everyone's experienced in the past of deferred interest and hidden fees. We don't do any of that.
Gotcha. And then for someone, let's just ask simply for patients with good credits, what no interest options will they have available to them?
Yeah, so folks with good credit are going to get a true 0% option with our out-of-the-box pricing for up to 3 months, though extended 0% options are available for practices who want to opt into that, because it depends, of course, on the patient base that you're serving and what people expect. But yeah, longer 0% interest rates are available for offices that opt into that.
One of the best things about your product is the fee, the merchant fee is much less than standard in most of the lending options that are out there. So can you talk about that as well?
Definitely. So our pricing for offices is really straightforward. It's 4.9% per transaction. There's no ongoing subscription or upfront registration fees or anything like that. And so one piece of feedback we get from our offices all the time is they love how predictable the cost is of offering financing through Wisetack. We take on all the risk. They just pay a 4.9% fee. It's a little bit more expensive than a credit card transaction fee. And for that, we take on all the risk. They get the money up front. And so it's a win-win for those offices that have been doing in-house financing in the past and taking on the risk themselves and writing off a big chunk of that. Or even ones who are used to offering third-party financing with much higher and variable fees. So we've been seeing a lot of positive feedback from our merchants on that.
That's great. One of the things that, as I obviously am very familiar with the third-party financing spectrum, you mentioned that there's no misleading with origination fees or any fees. There's no hidden fees. There's nothing like that. I'll tell you an experience I had. I'm not going to mention the company. That's not what this is for. But there's a third-party lending company out there that originally offers interest only. So the patients are paying interest, but you have an option to offer them no interest options. And when you offer the no interest options and they choose it, what's really interesting is when you read the disclosures that they have to sign, the lending form, it doesn't change. So if someone does, 3 years no interest or 24 months no interest, let's say 24 months no interest, it keeps the payment at 48 months at the amount that you're lending. So they actually have to call them up after the loan is booked and actually tell them they want to make it in 24 equal payments, or they're never going to pay off the loan in enough time. I think that's really sketchy. And I tell them all the time, and I warn every patient because I don't want them getting screwed by paying for something and not realizing that they're not paying the amount they need to pay to get the no interest option that we gave them.
Totally. It's been really surprising to me how many offices I've worked with who have used other third-party financing tools in the past and have stopped using them because they've had patients run into those issues. And philosophically and culturally at Wisetack, we want to be really transparent. We want to be making money when patients are making good financial decisions, when they're paying us back, and when we're not pulling one over on them with hidden fees. There are a lot of lenders out there that make money when people don't make payments because then they can balloon the amount that they owe, and those become profit centers for those lenders. We are structured very much against that model of operating. We want to be upfront with our patients and so that they know exactly what they're getting into. And we want them to have a good experience ultimately.
And one of the things you mentioned, which I think is really important, that, they're funded very quickly, the offices, but also there's really no risk at potentially having the money taken back from them. You guys are taking the risk, as you said, and there's other companies out there. And again, I don't want to bet about any company, but we hear stories about them, 2 years later finding out that the patient questioned the charge and the money was taken out of the account, no questions asked. So it's nice to know that there's really no risk to them using this type of payment option.
Definitely. And we take on all the risk. We don't claw back funds from the office, even if the patient stops making payment. When you think about the math of an office writing off 10% of their in-house financing, would you rather get 90% of what your patients owe you or 95% without that risk? So you pay 4.9% for financing, and you don't have to worry about, not only patients paying you back, but the overhead cost of having your employees call those patients and manage the whole system. You're essentially operating like a bank, and that's not what a lot of dentists went into the field with the goal of becoming. So we want dentists to be able to provide treatment to the patients who need it when they need it, and make it really easy for the patients to say yes to that treatment.
One of the reasons why some practices don't take or don't accept third-party financing is because they don't want to take the 7, 10, up to 15% hit, especially if they have dental insurance involved. And then they're even taking a further hit on it because they're already accepting the discount that they have to take because they take these insurances. So one of the nice things about it, as you said, is that for 4.9%, it makes it really easy to start using third-party financing instead of having to finance or self-finance or do financing plans in the office where it could take a patient 1.5 to 2 years to pay you their full bill.
Exactly. A lot of dentists aren't used to that cash flow of getting the money up front for a small fee. It's hugely helpful to run their business, be able to pay their bills without having to wait multiple years for a patient to pay them back. So it's been exciting to see how we've been able to impact these offices, not just in sort of the operations of it, but also just the total volume. I think that's something that we're really good at, is driving a greater volume of third-party financing because patients want to use this, and that's what I'm really proud of is the ratings that our users give us. That if we're giving them a 10 out of 10 experience, then something's going right, and we want to continue doing that.
Well, that's the most important thing, in my opinion, is the customer service they're getting from you, during the loan processing, even after the loan processing. If you're getting NPS scores of 10 out of 10, and I'm very familiar with NPS because of Bird Eye, that's terrific to hear. You did mention, though, that, you have an integration, or you're built into dental intelligence, and it could be offered directly through that platform. I know you have other integrations that are coming soon that you can't talk about. If someone doesn't have one of those companies, can they work directly with Wisetack to get funded, or they have to use one of these integrations?
So we can work directly with practices. We do have a direct online portal that they can log into and use that to send applications, and that works great for a lot of practices. We think the experience is even better when they're using it through someone like Dental Intelligence, where they can extend financing without learning a new tool, without having to sign into a new dashboard, and having it built into treatment plans, and having that integrated text-to-pay functionality within the communications features of Dental Intelligence is a huge value add for these offices. But we can absolutely serve offices independently as well. And I think over time, you're going to see, additional integrations with other software companies in the space where we can build out this functionality for even more users. But I think the quality of our technology for that integration is a huge differentiator. That's our primary way of going to market, is through these integrated partnerships. So it's been really exciting to see how successful that launch with Dental Intelligence has been. And I'm really excited for the year ahead and how many more dentists we're going to be able to serve with that quality of user experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So I know one of the things you said you're proud of is that you can basically drive greater volume of third-party financing to offices. I'm sure you have some stories that you can share that talk about the lift the practice gets once they really make the commitment to start using a third-party financing company. Just so you know, I was someone who was a fee-for-service practice. I was always willing to use the third-party financing to get treatment to a patient to accept treatment. The 12 or 15% that I sometimes had to pay didn't really matter to me. But once they made the commitment to start using third party financing, my case acceptance skyrocketed, my income skyrocketed. So I'm sure you have some stories you can share about people who use Wisetack and are seeing that same lift in their production in the office.
Definitely. And actually, today we just published a case study on Union Dental Center in Maryland. And over the last year, they've seen a 25x increase in the amount of third-party financing volume. So in the last 5 months that we've started serving this practice, they have lent $125,000 through our lending service. And in the same time period last year, when they were just using Care Credit, they lent $4,000. So this is a massive increase. And some great quotes we've had from them around how they were offering third-party financing for years and patients didn't want to use it or they weren't approved. And so not only can we approve more patients than some of these traditional options, we're giving people options that they're excited to take. And that office talked to us about how, this lady who had both of her front two teeth knocked out was able to get the implants that she needed. And she broke down crying because it was so meaningful to get the care that she had needed without stressing so much about how that was going to affect her financial health. And it's stuff like that that's really motivating for us, that we can make it, everyone benefits. The dentist can provide the care and get that production. The patient gets the care they need now, and the patient settles us over time without taking on a big risk to their financial health.
That's really good to know as well. So we talked about some of the factors that you need to be aware of, including, hidden fees or, anything that may kind of result in a poor user experience from both the dentist perspective and the patient perspective. Can you talk about some other factors that businesses or dentists need to be aware of when choosing someone to partner with when it comes to third-party financing?
Definitely. So I think you have to look at both patients and the practice, and you have to think about both the cost and the user experience. So I'll speak to both of those elements for both parties. So starting with the patient, of course, the cost of the patient matters a lot. Are they going to be able to afford these payments, and what other types of fees and terms are they signing up for that maybe they understand or don't understand? So that's the first factor. And then the quality of user experience. What does it look like to actually apply for a loan? Is this something that they can do on their own device? Is this something that's a hard or a soft credit check? So we're a soft credit check, and many other lenders are ding the credit report of the applicant, and that can hurt their credit even if they're not approved. So a lot of patients have learned to avoid these types of hard credit checks, have had bad experiences in the past, or they're just apprehensive. Maybe they would get approved, but they're scared to apply because what if they don't, and what if that does ding their credit? So that's huge. And also, what sort of user experience functionality does the lender bring to the table? Can they do text to pay? Can they integrate with your treatment plan so that patients can see that just right alongside the cost of their treatment? These are things where there's a lot of innovation going on with the technology. And we're very proud of what we've been able to do in terms of the user experience. And ultimately, it comes back to that Net Promoter Score evidence of people love using our service. And then for the merchant, of course, you need to look at the fees. First, what is the rate? And is that rate variable or flat? And is it predictable? And then what's the user experience for the office going to be? How much learning is going to be needed for the office to be able to offer this plan? What are the actual steps that the folks at the front desk have to take to send an application? Do they have to help the patient through the application? All this type of stuff adds overhead and stress and apprehension about actually offering financing. And then, of course, you want a financing tool that you can offer to many different patients. And that's a great thing about our ability to approve down to 540 FICO is this is an option that most people can use regardless of if they have great credit or not. And so that takes some of the stress off the office of knowing, oh, should I offer financing to this person or this person? One thing we've learned is that offices really don't have a good sense of who needs financing. And so you should be offering this to everyone every time and let them choose to use it or not, give them good options. So these are some of the factors that come into play. Of course, you also, on the merchant side, have who takes on the risk. And there are many lenders that either don't explicitly take on the risk, or they have terms in their contracts with the merchants that allow them to claw back funds, as you've mentioned. We don't do any of that, but those are really important things to make sure you know about a lender before signing up with them.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned that somebody is afraid to offer third-party financing as an option for a variety of different reasons. When I present, and I was one who presented finances in the office, that was my job. I didn't have a financial coordinator or a treatment coordinator. One of the things I did was I always led off with the financing option. So option number one was financing. Number two was, you split payments. If it was a denture in 4 payments, if it was Invisalign, we allowed 12 payments because they were coming in over the course of a year. Or they can pay in full and receive a 5% discount. I always led with the financing option because it was the cheapest payment potentially for a patient to make was that monthly payment through a third party financing companies. So that is kind of how I presented it rather than say, well, your treatment's $8,000 and I can give you 5% off if you pay in full. I said, well, your treatment costs this, but I can give it to you for this much approximately a monthly payment. Does that work for you? So that's the way I always recommend discussing financing with patients. So this fits perfectly into that space. So you should be able to lead with it and be able to offer it to every single patient because it's only 4.9% that you're taking out of from the practice. Simple as that.
Totally. And I think that it's sort of beautifully simple how to offer financing is you just offer it every time. And a lot of offices have trouble with that. But the most successful offices that we work with, it's simple. They just say, hey, the cost of your treatment is $8,000. We accept cash, check, credit card, and we have this great financing option that you can apply for in just a minute. It's not going to affect your credit. And a lot of people are going to go for that. And especially generationally, I think younger people are really used to seeing buy now, pay later options elsewhere in their life, whether it's e-commerce, shopping, or what have you. That's something that they're used to seeing. And so being able to offer that sort of buy now, pay later user experience and option for offline services is a huge boost to offices that want to be able to serve those younger generations effectively with the types of financial tools that those generations expect and are happy to use.
I love the idea. I love the product. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of third-party financing. I know we covered a lot here in a shorter period of time than I anticipated, but I wanted to ask you if there's anything else you wanted to mention about the product, about third-party financing, anything you think we missed during this 25 minutes or so that we've been discussing things.
When it comes to offering third-party financing, you should give patients options, and that Care Credit's been around for a long time. They're probably not going anywhere. But offices that give Wisetack a try love it and want to keep using it. So I would say, there's no harm in having multiple third-party financing providers in your office and try different options, see what works, see which ones make your patients happy. And it's really easy to get started and just give it a shot.
Well, we'll get your contact information or information for the attendees to be able to reach out to someone at your company to find out more information when we close the podcast. I do want to switch to another section I like doing. It's my lightning round Q&A. Though basically, for those that haven't heard it before, I'm going to ask you a question. Just answer it as quickly as you can. You don't have to go into these long, drawn-out answers. Okay?
All right.
So, Question number 1. How do you stay focused on moving forward and making progress in your life?
I think reading is the number one way that I stay focused. After graduating school, I've always wanted to continue learning. And so I try to read every night before bed, learn something new, and that keeps me inspired and intellectually curious.
Great. What have you given up on in your life that you wish you would never have?
Energy drinks.
That's funny.
I'm coffee only now.
Coffee only. Great. What do you think are some of your unique skills that has helped you become successful in what you do?
Being curious and asking questions and not being afraid to ask questions is the best way to learn. I've always been okay asking a question that others might perceive as dumb, because you ask, you're going to get the answer, you're going to learn and move forward. So just keep asking questions. It's a great way to live, and it's fun just to keep learning.
Perfect. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
My dad is probably my biggest inspiration. That he's worked hard his whole career, but he's made a huge effort to be with our family and raise us with love. And that's what I want to be for my family going forward. Just work hard, but be around and place a big priority on family.
I love that. What is the number one tactic you use to stay organized?
To-do lists. I need those to-do lists to stay functioning, and it takes a lot of stress off of me when I can write things down and know that I won't forget them.
What piece of advice would you give to college graduates who want to also be successful?
Don't think that you can't handle business problems that you've never solved before. That if you have energy and you're willing to learn, that you can really go into any industry that interests you. And everyone at every level is doing things for the first time they've never done before. And so if you have imposter syndrome, just believe in yourself, because you'd be surprised by how many people in life are making things up as they go and have been successful just through that belief getting them there.
Perfect. Who is the one person you'd love to have as a mentor?
I would say Tiger Woods. His ability to not only be the greatest golfer of all time, but also the level of focus he can have while there are millions of people screaming at him is so impressive. I think there's a lot I could learn from him.
Great. And if you had a magic stick, what are 3 things you would change in the world?
I would like to make people have more good faith interactions with people and not sort of expect that. I guess just give people the benefit of the doubt would be one thing. I would like for more people to get access to good education. I think that improves the world. And I would like to expand the love of reading amongst the population. I think if everyone interacted with more good faith, everyone was learning and reading, I think we'd have a better world.
And that's really funny, because my next question and my last one is, what is your favorite book? It's funny you said that.
My favorite book is called The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. It's a fantasy book, and it's very enjoyable, really amazing poetic prose.
Perfect. Well, this was awesome. I hoped you had a great time being on the podcast. For those who have interest in learning more about what Wisetack can do for them, can you give some contact information, a way to reach out to the company to get a demo or to get signed up?
I would personally be happy to speak with any listeners of this podcast. Please feel free to reach out to me at bennett.winton@wisetack.com. We're also available at simple.wisetack/raving. We'll have that link for the listeners after the pod. But thank you so much for having me, and would definitely encourage anyone who's interested to reach out and learn more. We'd be happy to work with your practice.
And by the way, that's Bennett with 2 N's and 2 T's. 2 N's, 2 T's. Bennett.winton@wisetack.com.
Thanks, Len.
Perfect. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did enjoy the content, please share the episode. Please recommend it to your friends and colleagues who are maybe interested in using Wisetack as a third-party financing company for their practice. Please review us. Please like it. Please vote for the podcast in the newest release of the best podcast out there. That would be really helpful to me. If you want to reach out to the sponsors, please do. We've got the Cloud Dentistry, the Doc Sites, and Dental Intelligence as our sponsors. And as I want to remind you again about my event in September 2023, September 29th and 30th, called Supercharge Your Dental Practice. Go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com and get $100 off registration with the code RAVING. Bennett, thank you so much for joining me today, and we hope to talk to you soon.